Oprah is the maven of everything. I used to write her letters. I know, I'm such a weirdo. I did.
What did the letters say?
Just how much she inspired me and how much I wanted to be better because I watched her.
I'll be running this job interview.
Okay. Haven't had one in a long time.
I'm sure. So, Mellody, you've had quite an illustrious career. You're a Princeton graduate. You run the investment firm you interned at, which manages over $13 billion in assets. You've served as a board member at some of the most well-known companies. You're a children's book author. And now you're opening a first-of-its-kind narrative arts museum with your husband, filmmaker George Lucas. What's the key to your success?
My work ethic. I tell people I bring heat to the things that I work on and the projects that I have and basically everything I do.
When did you two first decide you were going to build a museum?
We've been working on this project together basically as long as I've known him. George had decided that he was going to build a museum a very long time ago. He's the curator of the art that's in the building from his collection that he's been working on for 50 years. The idea was really prompted by George believing that there are illustrators and artists who are not celebrated to the extent that they should be.
Can you give me the 1-minute elevator pitch about the design of the museum?
I feel like I'm stepping inside of George's mind. Very cool, very creative, unexpected, really precise. So much of the detail is not obvious to you. Just like Star Wars, just like all the things that he's worked on, the detail is so nuanced.
What's your favorite detail about the museum?
I love the fact that on the first floor there are no corners. A lot of the building is round, there are no edges. That was very hard to do. There's a softness to this gigantic structure.
The museum is a project that began over a decade ago. Was there ever a moment when you thought this might not work out?
There were many moments. I mean, we were denied by 2 cities, and we drew 4 buildings for 4 different locations. But I would have to tell you that George was relentless. I never thought that we would stop. That's not my personality at all. I'm certainly not one for giving up. But there were moments that felt pretty daunting.
Some people would argue that who you marry is one of the most important career decisions you make. How did you know George was the one?
I knew George was the one when I knew there were no games. I was dealing with an adult. There was a moment that was very pivotal. I remember that I called him one day. I called him back, and then I called him a 3rd time, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm calling you so much." And he said, "You can call me anytime you want to call me." And I just remember thinking there was nothing I had to consider about was I overdoing or underdoing or anything like that. And I knew I was in a totally new league, and I liked it.
I want to go back to the beginning. You said before that growing up on Chicago's South Side shaped your perspective on money and opportunity. Tell me more about that.
I grew up as the youngest of 6 kids to a single mom, and that experience was at times very traumatic. We had experiences of scarcity, which led to us being evicted or our cars being repossessed or our lights turned off. And while I hated every minute of it, I appreciate the focus and commitment it gave me to understanding money.
In your TED Talk, you mentioned that your mother was ruthlessly realistic. What did you mean by that?
My mother didn't sugarcoat anything in my life, especially when it came to money. When I was a little girl, I said to my mom, "I wonder what Santa will bring me." And she looked at me and she said, "Mommy is Santa, and Mommy is the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and all of those things." She made it very, very clear that that fantasy did not exist for me and that she wanted me to know it. She says, "Mommy works hard for whatever you get." And I remember that being a very sobering moment, almost something I didn't want to know. She had a big heart, but she was just very direct.
Was there a moment in your career where you realized your upbringing was actually one of your strongest assets?
I've known that my upbringing was one of my strongest assets from the beginning. I remember being 5 years old and thinking, I'm not like others. I was an old young person.
As part of this job interview, we checked your references, and Oprah Winfrey has called you the real maven of money. Why do you think she said that?
What she told me is when she read Priceless Facts About Money, which she loved, she's like, "You give these examples that even for me," she said, "I just have a new appreciation for how you think about things." I wanted to help kids understand how important money would be in their lives, and I wanted to try to overcome the deficit that we have in our school system that doesn't teach kids about money and investing.
The summer after your sophomore year in college, you landed an internship at Ariel Investments, and you said that you took to it like a fish to water. Was there a particular experience there that made it click for you so quickly?
I discovered a world that I did not know existed. I didn't know anything about the stock market, anything about investing. I felt like I just had an epiphany. and I just saw life in a very different way. And so ultimately, Ariel became a true gateway for me to understand the world in a much different way.
What would you tell your intern self today?
All the hard work is worth it. Sleeping under my desk sometimes, doing draft after draft after draft. All the practice that I did in front of a mirror was something that would pay off and that I would reap rewards that I would never, ever, ever understand could happen to me.
If George were in finance and you were in filmmaking, what do you think each of you would be like in the other's world?
George always jokes that I would be an excellent producer. He's like, you are really good at certain details. And he said, if you hadn't been in money management, you'd just be a great producer. And my creative mind comes through in other ways that are physically visible. People see that in how I dress and the environments around me. And so they see me as more creative at times, which I take as a compliment. I think if George were in my world, he'd be a really brilliant portfolio manager because the best portfolio managers are original. They are artists in their own right. And I think he'd have one of the most unique portfolios.
Do you have a favorite film of his?
I don't have a favorite film of George's. I see so much in each one. Last night I went to see John Williams at the Hollywood Bowl, and they were doing Star Wars, and I've listened to the score so many times. It's so, you get goosebumps when you hear that opening. Just thinking about the fact that he could pull all of that together was something that continues to just be magical, even for me, and I get to live with him.
What's one thing you think might surprise people about George?
Most people don't know that George is very funny. He never smiles in photos. I don't know what it is. As we say, he's got yokes, which is jokes. The jokes are funny.
We also had to go through your socials, and we saw that you posted this.
You've been on some of the most influential boards in business and culture. Is this post something that resonated with you?
Well, I posted it because I've been there so many times. I believe in having people of diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, diverse geographies, all sorts of things that will allow for better problem solving. But I think all forms of diversity are important.
In this post, you express gratitude for Queen Latifah's family ship. What does family ship mean to you?
She's family that is selected. I've been so happy and amazed and proud to be her friend. She's extremely close to George and our daughter Everest, and we're close to Ebony, her wife, and her son Rebel, and it's just been an amazing gift.
And here, you seem to relate to Yoda. What's Yoda's best advice?
Yoda's best advice is do or do not, there is no try. And that is something that is a refrain in my life. Most people, they're constantly trying to explain. They're constantly making excuses. There is no try. You either did it or you didn't, and that is an anchor for me in my brain.
Looking back at all you've done, what would you tell your teenage self?
It's gonna be okay. Even though you don't think it is, and maybe at 56 you still have moments of stress and anxiety, the universe is going to unfold as it should. Just trust the universe.